Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you're enjoying the content, please drop us up, drop a like, and let us know your thoughts below in the comments. Also, please consider supporting our podcast via the link below. It really helps us out. Leland, welcome to the World XP podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. So why don't you do a quick intro and then something that I didn't tell you offline, but every guest has a question that's left for them from the previous guest. So we'll start with your intro and then we'll hop into the rest of the conversation, if that
Sounds
works
good.
for you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So do a quick intro and then we'll get going.
Okay. Quick introduction for me. Local DMV guy. Grew up in Frederick, Maryland. Been playing the game my entire life. Played at Hood College. 2020 moved down to the Alexandria, Virginia area. World went through a little something there for a little bit. So interesting time to move to a new area. But once things cleared up, it was just a situation where I really wanted to get involved with the local game. And thankfully, I was able to start up one of my own teams, FC 1749. Took it a couple places, ended up with Alexandria Soccer Association, and now I'm the general manager of the Alexandria Reds NPSL and UPSL team. So been doing it now for coming up on 3 years, and really looking forward to everything that's ahead of us. We've got a lot of great things going on. New UPSL season coming this spring, new NPSL season this summer. Hoping to just continue to have success there.
Very nice. So, Chris, I'm going to use your question for the one that I'm recording right after this, because I didn't want to give Leland a 1 hour turnaround to give me a question, and Mustafa was nice enough to send two. So the question from the previous guest for you is, what is something that you wish you spent more time doing, and why? Could be anything.
Honestly, I would say I wish I spent more time. I'm going to say right now in the gym, and that's a bit of a crazy thing to say because my full-time job is actually being a general manager of One Life Fitness, and being there doing that for the last 10 years. It's a very, very busy thing, but we spoke. I recently had that knee surgery. I was getting ready to get back out on the field. Really miss playing, so that's the goal, man. Just try and get back into the gym, live a healthy lifestyle. Had some things happen with some family members recently, put some things into perspective. So really important for everybody to just stay on the grind. Be healthy, get in the gym, make it happen, do the things you like doing. So that's where I'm at.
100%. That's a good answer. I couldn't be a bigger advocate of like strength resistance training, all that stuff, just for longevity and everything else. Yeah, no, that's a great answer for sure. Okay, so you mentioned a couple of things actually that I want to ask you about before we jump into the things that we talked about, just related, of course. But how did you end up with, first of all, I go to One Life. That's my gym. I love it. But how did you end up in that field? And I asked the question because obviously, so I play for Virginia Dream. We played against you guys when we played at your place in Alexandria. We used the One Life locker rooms and stuff, and so you were able to. I assume that was you that was able to make that connection. How did you end up at One Life and then being in sort of the management field of a local, like the management arena of a amateur semi-pro kind of team? And the reason I ask that is because there's a lot of, as a player, I have no desire really to be in the management side of things, but that's kind of where you end up. How did that journey go for you, and how did you end up here from a, like, I'll say, like, career path?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, as far as the One Life stuff goes, when I was a freshman in college, I was playing at Hagerstown Community College in Maryland for 2 years, and I was just looking for an opportunity to have some part-time work and a free gym membership. So opportunity presented itself at One Life to work at the front desk and do some housekeeping and whatnot. So I was actually able to do that throughout my entire 4 years of college. And I even did my internship through my major, which was business administration with a marketing concentration at One Life. And naturally, after being there for 4 years, Upon graduating, they offered me an opportunity to step into a sales position. And I was comfortable there. I was very familiar with uh, everything associated with working in a health club, similar to One Life Fitness, and um, I was able to have success in that role. Obviously, anything sales is very, you know, you have to be self motivated and driven to earn those results. And once I was kind of deep into that, I was offered an opportunity to move into managerial positions, and which then led to me being able to transfer to the Alexandria location in 2020 and become the general manager at that location. So, it was just one of those things where naturally I was able to kind of move up through the ranks and thankfully have the opportunity to be in the position I am today. But I would say moving towards the managing a semi-professional or amateur team, um, working in that environment and having some of that managerial experience definitely put me in a place where I was feeling confident when it comes to starting something up on my own and just overall running each aspect of it. And back in 2020, myself and two college teammates and close friends were able to start up FC 1749. And it was right outside of COVID. We were, looking at all the teams that were in the area, and everyone has things that they like and don't like about the teams, and there's so many different aspects of each team. So we figured, why not give it a run on our own? Thankfully, initially it was right outside of COVID, and we played in the WPL over the winter
Hmm.
back then. And we just put a group of guys together that we knew from college, and local guys. One guy comes, he brings his friend or two friends, and you have a team. And in that first season there in the winter, it was so much fun, and I enjoyed kind of the aspect of having some social media and getting your name out there, and we were experiencing success on the field. So I really just we ended that winter, and I think we ended up losing in the final, I guess you could say, to the commissioner's team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I played on that team.
Yeah. And but I was so interested in seeing where it could take us. So that's when we stepped into the Maryland Major League shortly after that first season. And once we did that, I was committed, but there's a lot of things that go into it when you kind of step into that new realm of like, okay, you're joining a not to be disrespectful in any way, but a bit more of like a long time organized league where I think there was a little bit bigger platform. And I knew that we were going to need to have every aspect taken care of. And when you're talking about every aspect, I mean, obviously having a team that can compete, um, the business side of things, having the financials lined up so that things can be taken care of, fields, rentals, practice, all of that just takes it up a whole nother level. And myself and my friends were up to the task. I mean, we initially financially took on the burden by ourselves. We looked for sponsorship, but thankfully we had success in that first season. We went undefeated, and we won won the final, and that league paid us $2,000 to basically get promoted and have some financial backing moving forward. And then right after that, we were able to win Division 1, and that's when things got really interesting. At that time, and this is a huge piece in the story of me and where I'm at now with my overall role in this game. Um, we had some issues with the league when we won. We were supposed to win $6,000 for the overall prize money, and at halftime of the final, I was told that that wasn't going to happen, and we were going to be only making $2,000. And myself and the individuals that ran the team obviously had the intentions of hopefully winning that game and then using the money to move forward into that next step into a national semi-professional league, which was the UPSL. And we won the game, thankfully. him and I spoke. I didn't tell anyone on our team. I wanted them to enjoy the win and focus on their achievements. And then the day after, reach out, don't hear anything. And that's actually when I put a post on social media, kind of to the DMV soccer community as a whole, and it absolutely blew up. I basically
I
just
remember seeing that. Yeah.
yeah, I remember letting everybody know that, this is what happened. It's extremely unfortunate that it did. And I exhausted all efforts to not get to that point, to give him an opportunity to do what was right. And because of the success and the spread of that post, I actually had an individual reach out who was a lawyer that played for a team in Baltimore that just said, look, like, this is insane. I want to get involved. I want to help you guys. And unfortunately, we had to go down that road. So we ended up utilizing, his help, and he was able to make things right. And after that, we were thankfully able to, yeah, take that next step. And once we moved into the UPSL, we played one season, enjoyed it. But then that's when I realized, having been in the area for a bit longer and kind of viewing the landscape, that there was going to be one issue for the future success of our team being associated with Alexandria, Virginia. And that was seeing this logo on every car in the area, having an understanding of how large the organization was, and just knowing that it would be extremely difficult to try and pull um, a true, crowd, or grow to a certain size when you've got some competition like that. And obviously, it's not just Alexandria. You've got some other large clubs that have youth all the way up. And basically, I was sitting at my full time job, and I received a phone call from the executive director of the club. And he said, hey, I'd love to speak to the general manager. And I just happened to be standing at the front desk and say, well, you've got him. He's like, oh, I'd love to speak to you about some sponsorship opportunities, because we're looking to put an NPSL team into the league this summer, and we're looking for some different opportunities. And I said, wow, this couldn't have happened at a at a better time. So I let him know who I was. I let him know, what I was into. And believe it or not, the next day he was at the gym with another individual, speaking to me about, what they had going on. And it quickly turned into an opportunity for me to be involved. And there was no question. I saw it as a initially an opportunity for me to kind of take a new role, and be involved in a even, more organized league. And I, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, wow, I was just talking about this with, my friends, and you could say business partners. There's opportunity here. I mean, we could start off this relationship, hope that it goes well, and then potentially merge efforts. And thankfully, after that first NPSL season 2 summers ago, that's exactly what happened. So we've been a part of Alexandria Soccer Association ever since. And I could go into why that was so beneficial, for so many different reasons if you'd
Yeah.
like.
I want to ask one other thing about that, which is your team when 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 you get the phone call, when you're talking about potentially merging and stuff, you've got a team of players that need places to play.
Mhm.
Obviously Alexandria is a very good team, and there's a lot of good teams in the area. Did you have that conversation with your players, or how did that work out? Like, was Alexandria welcoming with saying like, "Hey, we'll take some of your players on," or maybe not, but also the tryouts that you guys have are, I would imagine, are very extensive, and you guys got like what, 100 players come out, something crazy like that.
Yeah, I mean,
So
50 to 80 just depends on which
yeah.
it's happening. But yeah.
So how did you, as managing your FC 1749, how did you deal with that with the merge? Because you don't want to leave your players out to dry. But at the same time, you got to look at what's going on for you, and maybe if you merge clubs, it's best for you and kind of generally speaking and financially, it's not sustainable to keep FC 1749 and UPSL for forever because it's so expensive, yada yada yada. So how did you kind of go about that thought process, and how was that like for you?
So initially, when we spoke with Alexandria, the idea, came up about the merger. And um, again, the full focus was on NPSL and my involvement because it was really late in the game when they were offered the opportunity to put in a team that first summer. So
Hmm.
I I didn't want to put too much emphasis on the potential merger, but again, it was brought up in conversation. But I wanted to, I guess, get my feet wet in a sense of working with Alexandria and feel out the landscape and have a better understanding of how things worked. And upon doing so, I had conversations with the team, had conversations with both the individuals that I work with, being Xavier Matthews is one, and then Christian Mejia is the other. We had to sit there and think again, all of the financial burden of FC 1749 is currently on our shoulders. When everyone has full-time jobs and you're running a team, realistically, how much time do you have to go reach out to sponsors on a very regular basis to try and build the overall sponsorship backing? In a sense of just field availability and space in the Northern Virginia or DMV area, how difficult and expensive it is to have facilities. So again, all of these things were things that we were thinking about initially before we even thought about the players, because we knew if we had those things that life for the players would be even easier. The one thing that we did from the beginning with FC 1749 was we took it upon ourselves to ensure that no players paid anything to be a part of the team. We said, in a perfect world, if we're capable of taking on the financial side of things, we believed it would help us recruit higher level players, because there's so many teams and so many different leagues. Some of the guys that in Sunday leagues or at the amateur level are getting paid, whether it's most of the time what under the table by whoever, because the teams want to have success and feel that's how they can do it. Well, I saw it as an opportunity to bring in high level players and offer them a chance to gain some exposure, play in an organized team. And I didn't really care about what they were doing outside of that. As long as they showed up for training and showed up for the games and held themselves to a certain standard, that's all we wanted. And I think that's exactly why we had so much success so fast. But upon completion of the first NPSL season, we're coming to the end, fall's coming up. Are we going to put FC 1749 back in the UPSL, or are we going to make this change happen with Alexandria? The opportunity presented itself. I had a conversation with the players, and one of the big pieces for me when it comes to the final decision was I want to have control of the group, because there are all of these 1749 players that we have, and I have no interest in letting any of them go. Obviously, we knew that when we made that kind of merge, that there would be some increased interest, because Alexandria had already been operating a team in the APL and some other leagues in the past. And now you're kind of joining a local giant. So, in a sense of exposure for the team, we figured there probably will be some more individuals attending tryouts and reaching out wanting to play. So I told the entire group, we want to bring you along. We want you to be involved. Now we have financial backing. Now we have facilities to train at regularly and play at. We have the equipment that we need. And we're going to continue to take steps up in every aspect of the operations of the team, because naturally that's what we wanted to do. So that was huge, and the majority of the group did continue to play with us into turning into the Alexandria Reds. Unfortunately, some of the guys saw it as a, okay, now things are getting more serious. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to something like that. So they stepped away, but we did keep a really solid core group of guys, and again, we've just been moving along ever since. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So the one other thing that or the one big thing that we had chatted about was college recruiting, or finding opportunities elsewhere, whether it's trials or current college players looking to transfer, things of that nature. Um, I'll let you kind of take that and run with it because I don't really have a question. Like I didn't play in college. I found out about college recruiting way too late, and I was like, oh, I'll just try and walk on in Mary Washington. It didn't quite work out for me, and then I didn't bother to transfer because I was 18 and didn't feel like doing all the paperwork and figuring out what that was. And the school was nice enough that I was like, oh, I'll just stay. It's fine, and club is fine, whatever else. Um, so I'll just let you take that and run with it because I don't really know anything about it, anyways.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak about this. I'm definitely at this point in things extremely passionate about helping these local players with opportunities. And you just said it yourself. You know, you didn't really find out about the overall process until it was kind of late. And you know, I was kind of in the same boat. I, as a high school player and club player, you know, I had resources around me, but at the time, you know, it was just playing a good club team. Hopefully, you win games, you go to some tournaments, and hopefully, you get recruited. There wasn't this massive emphasis on all of these other little things that you can do to kind of market yourself and provide you with more opportunities. So I think the first thing that I would really like to speak about is just some things that players can do on the field, and then you know obviously some things they can do off the field. And I think with on the field it's extremely simple, you know, talking about whether it's high school to college, college to college, or post college opportunities. You know, at any level you're going to need experience and you're going to have the ability. So yeah, I mean, every player, as you know, in a perfect world, you'd hope that you're in an organized team that has quality coaching, because, yeah, you need that in a sense to improve different aspects of your game. And then at the same time, are you individually, you know, out there on the field, putting in the work in the gym, making sure that you're ready. So yeah, I think those are the givens. You know, if you're gonna be on a high level team or you want those opportunities, do you have the experience? Do you have the abilities to even be able to play at that next level? But I think more so now that I'm in this post college world, talking about, you know, tryouts and trials, I think three things that I want to point out when it comes to marketing yourself in those opportunities. And the first thing is, you know, you've gone to tryouts. I'm sure there could be 20 guys, there could be 100 guys. And how are you going to separate yourself from the rest of the group? Um, Initially, when you show up, I think this is the most basic of the basic. Do you pass the eye test? You know what I mean? In this sport or any sport, playing at a high level, there's an expectation. And I think um, you know, it's a sense of, again, those small things. If you show up to a trial and you're not fit enough, or you're not in a place where you can compete at that high level, you've already taken yourself from here to there right off the jump. You know, do you look like a high level college or professional player? Now there's a different you know, there's different looks for everybody, different body types, whatever the case may be. But let's be honest, you can look at someone and for the most part have an idea if they're fit. So I think that's number one. But then even kind of on top of that, you're talking about just the professionalism and the way that the individual player carries themselves by showing up and already being in a place where you're fit. The staff is going to have some idea of, okay, well, this person's clearly committed and are looking and seriously hoping to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. So you know, small things when you show up to the tryout. uh, are you showing up on time? Are you introducing yourself to the staff? Are you taking some time to yourself and meeting some of the other guys that are there, showing that you're, you know, open to being in a team, and you're not just going to the corner, not speaking to anybody, and doing your own thing. Obviously, I think it's fair to have some time to mentally prepare yourself and lock in, but I think those are some small things initially when you're showing up for those opportunities that go a far way. And the last thing I think is just your overall attitude in those situations. Because I think anybody who shows up to a tryout with 100 guys is not going to be um, at their most confident. You're sitting there thinking, are they actually watching me? Are those guys over on that field being watched? Is this a real opportunity for me? Is this fair? But at the end of the day, you kind of have to let those things go, because if you get too in your head, you're not going to have the performance that you need, and you never know who's watching. So whether it's again the staff, or maybe there's other players that are already in the team that are mixed into the group. If you show up and you do those things initially, and then overall have a quality performance, and it's unlikely to have your best day in training or your best day on the field every single day. But if you're giving it everything that you have, and take advantage, then yeah, the opportunity should hopefully present itself. And if it doesn't, I think that's where some of this other stuff can kind of help prior to even getting to this point. And I think that's more so where I wanted to talk about things, because there are so many good players that are in the DMV and all over, and showing up and just playing well. That's kind of a normal thing, for these high level tryouts. There's a lot of guys with top college experience or semi-professional experience or other professional experience. So I think these things that you can do off the field can really help separate you from the rest before you even show up. And I think this is where I've taken the most time to speak with players, because these are the things that they weren't doing. It's kind of a given. Most guys want to show up and they know that they need to show out and play well. But to talk about some of the stuff off the field, being in my position, I also run the social media for the Alexandria Reds, and I did it for FC 1749. I also have the email accounts associated with that. So players reach out all the time and they say, "Hey, we'd love an opportunity to come play in your group," or "I would love an opportunity to try out." Well, being in a position like this, receiving those emails, there's days where I could get 3 or 4. There's weeks where I could get 50. And when you're sifting through those emails, you want to have, in a perfect world, all the information that you need to have a real understanding of who this individual is, not respond to that email and have to ask 10 questions. Because let's just be honest, if 5 other guys out of the 50 gave everything to me, I'm going to look at those, and that's what I'm going to focus on, because I don't have time to send 50 emails to other people asking for all the information. So the thing I want to start out with is, I feel like, the most basic, but it's not necessarily easy, because not everyone's technically savvy or very good with apps, or doing this on the computer. It's just a simple highlight video. I'm sure you yourself, you're very familiar with how important that is, because it's just an opportunity to put together clips to show the best you and the player that you're trying to kind of market to whoever you're trying to play with. And if you don't have that, well, then again, if you already have an established team who's first, second, third in the table, and you have 30 something guys showing up to training, do you really need to invite someone else that might be on the cusp of being in that group, if they're not blowing you out of the water initially with their experience and everything else that they tell you? So having that highlight video and having it be in a certain sense professional and organized, it's going to at least take you one step farther in potentially getting an opportunity. Because yes, I'm willing to open that link and watch initially, maybe a minute. And if that minute catches me or someone that I'm watching it with, okay, well, now the interest has just gone from here to there. So that's number one. And I think right now, one of the things that I would like to say to any player out there is, if you are playing in a team and the matches that you're playing are not being filmed, you should bring it up to the people that are running the team, or you should take it upon yourself to find some way to film the matches. Because if you don't have the film, one, you can't analyze your own performances, and two, you can't provide the clips to someone else for that next opportunity. So I think that's just something that goes such a long way, and more players need to be serious about that piece. um, I don't want to look at, and nobody wants to look at, some clip that you sent me in a text message or some like Facebook live stream, put together a highlight tape. There's so many people out there that will help. There's a couple apps that are very easy to use, so I would highly suggest it. Moving past the highlight tape, I mean, we keep talking about, and I keep
Real
saying,
quick before you go
go
on,
ahead. Yeah.
um, you know Noah Walker, right? The DMV
Yes.
sports, like that's something that a lot of leagues I think around the area have been more. I think more matches of mine generally, like I wasn't going out to seek film because I'm kind of like set with where I am, but more matches of mine I think have been filmed in the last year and a half than probably the previous 5 years combined. So shout out to Noah for that, and I know that he filmed some of y'all games as well,
Yeah.
and so he's kind of it's becoming a thing. So in terms of the highlight stuff, try and find out if your game is being filmed by him, or somebody else, and then kind of it's once you get that YouTube stream, it's kind of easy to pull highlights from there. So, anyways, just to add on to what you were saying, but yeah,
So true, and he's a great guy, and I think he took it upon himself to help you, me, and everyone else in the area have the opportunity to go and take those clips and gain a little bit more exposure. So that's huge plus. And speaking about the experience, the CV. I mean, you're familiar, I'm sure, with the CV. It's just it's an additional step, and I think um, getting recruited to play in a team is extremely comparable to a job interview process. You go, you apply for the job, you have to submit a resume. What are they doing? They're looking at your experience, they're looking at your skills and the positions that you've held, and it's the exact same situation here. You send me an email and you say, I want to play in your team, and you attach a highlight video. Cool. Well, if the highlight video doesn't have your phone number, email, some information about the teams that you're playing, the position that you're playing, you just send me a video and it's you on the field, I might not even know which one is you if you don't have the software to point that out. So I think the CV is something that I've definitely started to put more emphasis on with players, especially recently. Just I kind of created a template, and I'll just share it with guys so they can put in their own information. And again, the key things to point out there are experience, um, your personal information, the positions that you're playing, the your height, weight, a secondary position. Are you versatile in a sense of having a secondary position? Potentially throwing a picture of you playing, a link to your highlights, because again, so many guys in my past have reached out, right, or have had conversations with me, and I guarantee you know what I'm talking about here in a moment. And they say, oh yeah, I used to play for so and so, and whatever so and so is, it's some big team, whether it's in this country, another team. Oh, I used to train with this team. Okay, all right. Well, what am I going to do that's very similar to someone who's maybe hiring an individual for a job? They're going to do their research. You would hope. So what's going to happen? I'm going to Google your name, and if I Google your name and nowhere can I find anything about you playing with this particular college or this particular club team or this professional team, well, then obviously I'm going to question if that was actually the case. And I think, again, I'm not sitting here saying people are lying, left and right, but in a sense of trying to promote yourself, I could see why guys would say, oh yeah, maybe they train with a team one day, but all of a sudden that turns into, oh yeah, I was training with, let's just for instance say, Loudoun United. Okay, well, great, but again, that's not the same as I would say, oh, I played 10 matches with this team in this league, and here are my statistics for those 10 matches. That's going to go so much farther than again, that first piece of, oh, I was just training with this team, or I played with this team, and there's absolutely no record of it. So with that CV, the last piece on top of the personal information, the experience, is connections. Or references. It's just like, again, a regular resume. If you have a coach that you played under, and you were very close, or even if you weren't necessarily close, but they spoke of you highly or be willing to speak of you highly, that needs to be on there. Because again, if I'm questioning this particular player and I want to know if this really did happen, because maybe I can't find it on the internet or social media, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to give them a call. And if that individual is willing to speak highly of you and confirm the things that you've said, well, then that just puts me in a place where I'm that much more interested in moving on to the next step and having you out to train or including you in the group. So I think those two pieces initially are so important when you're, I would say, utilizing email communication with teams, or you're reaching out over social media by sending messages. I think two things that are definitely important to have. There's really only two things that I would want to add on top of that when it comes to things you can do off the field. And I think this first one has changed so drastically over the years, but social media is obviously a part of everything these days. So when it comes to again running our club's social media, I'm on there a good bit. And what am I seeing? I'm seeing players all over the area playing in their different teams, and how they're, I guess you would say, marketing themselves on that platform. And the way that I see it is if you're in high school, going into college, or again at college trying to transfer, or outside and trying to get that next opportunity, it's another situation where I'm going to look and see what that looks like, because I want to know a bit more about you. And if I'm going to someone's Instagram page and there's not a single picture of them playing or having any association with the team, I'm not necessarily, I guess you would say, like judging them instantly or anything along those lines, but I'm going to kind of question, like, okay, well, most guys, they want to share their success on the field. They want to kind of put out there that they're playing in this particular team. And those are the things that I'm looking for, because I would like to think that if they're putting those things up there, obviously they're enjoying the time that they're spending with that team, or they are having success in sharing that so other people can see, which again is just, it's marking yourself to the, I guess, like the mass population or whoever it is that's following you. But when I go and I see, let's just say, two different profiles, that first profile where there's really no pictures of you playing, there's no individual, or there's no pictures of you in a team, in a starting 11 or whatever, then I'm going to sit there and I'm going to think about it. But let's just say there's another player that has the same ability, the same experience, and I go look at their page and it's full of pictures of them playing that are recent, clips of them that are recent. Those are all things that can just continue to confirm that they're actively playing. This is the team that they're playing for. Wow, that clip was incredible. That's definitely catching my attention. So yeah, I'm going to shift more towards that second individual. And I think that's just because, as I've said, that person clearly is dedicated. And I think you can have two different profiles. You can have one for your social life and you can have one for playing. But I would highly suggest that for any individuals at this point, at any different level, to at least have that profile that is dedicated to you playing, because again, those small things are going to, I just think, continue to kind of elevate you and help in a sense of when someone is looking to find you and confirm some of that information. So I think that's pretty important. And then just last piece for me is just the overall communication between you and whoever it is that you're speaking with. If I receive a social media message from a player that just says, like, hello, how are you? And then there's 10 other messages that say, hey,
I've
how's it
got a few of
going?
those,
Yeah, my
and I
name is
don't even have a
so-and-so.
team.
I mean, like, what are we talking about? I mean, I'm not going to just sit there and start a whole conversation, because again, there's with today, there's so many things going on, and there's so many other, again, players that are taking those extra steps that I'm going to put more emphasis on them. So, in a sense of communication, it needs to be professional. And I know that for younger guys, maybe in high school or guys in college, it's, you might not be the best at that, but there's simple things that you can do, like read over the email or the message that you're sending before you send it. Make sure that that key information is in there, and always put your contact information for whoever it is to reach out, because maybe they don't want to respond to that long email. Maybe they will just pick up the phone and call you. So those are the things that you definitely need to cross those off when it comes to your overall communication. And if you're looking for these opportunities and you are lucky enough to get a response, is there urgency there in your ability to respond? Do you quickly get back to those people? Because again, I could get 5 more messages in the next couple hours, and it could be somebody else that is interested in the same opportunity. So I end it all with, there's so much competition, there's so many guys out there that are trying to get these opportunities. Do these little things to help kind of separate yourself from the group. And I think then when you're capable of showing up and getting the opportunity on the field, they at least know we've got a professional player here that carries themselves in a professional manner. Clearly they're mature enough to cross off all these boxes, and now we get to just solely focus on, are they going to be a good fit in our team? So that's
Yeah,
that's where I'm at with that.
that's a good spiel. I think one other thing to add to the communication piece is a lot of younger guys think that's just because it's Instagram or Twitter or whatever, that it doesn't have to be as professional as an email or whatever, and that's just not the case. Like, just no matter the platform, but all the information, it's really about making a good first impression and putting all the information that you would want somebody to know about you in it the first time. So you don't have to go back and asking for it. Um, and yeah, to your point about they've checked off all the boxes, the last thing that you want is to have a really good tryout and then them, whoever's watching, to be worried about if you're going to be a problem in the locker room, or if you're going to be on time to the bus when you got to go to an away game, or like all those things. You want that to be not the worry, because if you know you're a good player, then you do everything else and let the playing take care of itself. Um, so you touched on a lot of things about people, maybe you looking at resumes and stuff. How do you, with sending your players out to, whether it's a younger player that played UPSL and they're trying to get recruited for college, or a current Red player that maybe is looking to go on trial, how do you help them? What's your role in that? Are you reaching out to people for players? You're helping them with templates for their CVs, things of that nature. You providing reference, like you're like, hey, you can put me down as a reference, stuff like that. How does that work for you? And do you have a process for that, or does it depend on the player and the situation?
So I definitely have a process for that, and I'm heavily involved. And I think, to speak about one particular thing that you just said, is kind of like thankfully we've had some younger players in our group recently. One of them being a high school player, so he's a senior in high school and he's considering, his next home, and that would be whatever collegiate program he decides to join. And with that, as we've just spoken about, how many people out there are looking for those same opportunities. And over the years, now it's not just, all these American players that are looking for these opportunities. You have to factor in all the international players that are now looking to come to the United States and take advantage of playing in a collegiate team. So there's even more competition. And I think the piece that I want to focus on here would be, uh, most of the time players are sending those emails, and you talk to any college coach, any of them, and ask them how many emails they get a day from players that are interested in playing the program. They'll probably tell you anywhere between 80 to 150, or sometimes even more, depending on the program. So the way I see it is, if all of those players are reaching out, maybe they are coming from a good team. Maybe they did do all the things we've already spoken about to separate themselves, which is great. But the way I see it is, thankfully, because of the success of Alexandria and me being in the position that I'm in, if I were to send an email for a player, I would like to think that it would get a little bit farther, or there would be a little bit more credibility than, say, just the players sending it themselves. So, I've taken it upon myself to put in a little bit of extra effort to help this particular player send those emails. And we've just created a template where, again, it's giving key information, a description of him, attaching his highlight video and CV. And I CC him on the email, because I'm hoping that, again, if we're sending this to the entire collegiate staff, at least one of them is going to read through the email. Um, then at that point, they have the ability to reach out to me or him or both, because maybe they do want to reach out to me and ask more questions about the individual before they reach out to him. Or maybe they say, thank you for, highlighting this player. We're definitely interested and we'll be reaching out to him. You know what I mean? So either way, we're in a good place, because I feel confident if they're going to ask me a question, I'm going to continue to build some value on him as a player. And if they reach out to him, we've had conversations, just be ready, stay on top of your emails. If someone gives you a phone call, make sure you step away from it, whatever it is that you're doing. Or if it's not the right time, just respectfully ask to schedule a call at another point. But when you're reaching out to, I think I looked at this the other day, 300 something Division I programs, I want to say, for
Yeah, that
soccer.
sounds right.
Soccer, I think it was like 305 maybe. you know I sent emails to a very large number of them. And obviously, if you're sending a lot of emails to all these programs, uh, and a lot of them, your hope is that you'll at least get a response from a couple. And thankfully for his situation, he's gotten a lot of responses, and that can be hard to manage at times. So I feel that having me involved in the process was nice, just because I kind of established an ongoing conversation with him about, have you responded to this person? What'd they say? Have you responded to this person? Well, here's what they said. What do you think I should say back? So in a way, I'm kind of helping guide him through these conversations. And by no means am I telling him exactly what to say, because then he's not really learning anything. It would just be me speaking to them. But I saw it as an opportunity for him to, grow in a sense of his overall communication skills, and again, marketing himself to these coaches, and showing them that he might be 17, 18 years old, but he could step into any of these programs and make an instant impact across the board. So that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to, the college or high school to college piece. And it's very comparable to the guys in the transfer portal, which is just absolutely crazy these days. I mean, back in the time that I was playing, and even, I'm sure we were probably in school maybe around the same time, where it just wasn't a thing. It really wasn't a thing to the extent that it is today. So now it's even more difficult, because there's so many guys that may spend one season at a program, and there could be so many different reasons, but they're looking for another home, and that's more competition for guys in high school or the guys that are already in the program. So it all goes back to, again, how are you marketing yourself, and are you putting yourself in a good place to take advantage of those opportunities? But it's a whole different ball game, as you know, when you get out of school and you're looking at those professional opportunities, or trying to explore those. And I think for me, I've still been involved in the process. Uh, I think, again, sending emails or making connections through LinkedIn or speaking with agents or agencies, those are small things that I can do to build my network, which in turn is going to allow for me to help guys get further opportunities. But very recently, I was able to help one of the guys in our group put together an updated CV, make sure his highlight tape was good. And based off a connection that I had, I mean, he's being invited to a private invite only trial with a professional team in the USL Championship. And I think that's massive, regardless if it works out for him or it doesn't. Just the simple fact that he was able to get that opportunity, it shows a couple of different things to the entire group that we have. One, they see how he's working on and off the field. So by getting this opportunity, they can sit there and think, am I at that same level? Am I doing the things that he's doing to even put him in a, put him in a place to get that opportunity. And then when the opportunity comes, are you ready to take advantage of it? You know what I mean? Because the whether it's an opportunity here in this country or in another country, there could be someone at your game or even at a training that you have no idea is there, could see you, could like you, could call you and offer you an opportunity the next day. And are you in a place where if that opportunity presents itself, that you could 100% feel confident that you're at your best to take advantage of it? And unfortunately, a large number of players feel that that's where they're at, but in reality truly aren't there. You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that I preach to the entire group, because in the teams that you've played in, I'm sure there are players that have aspirations of playing at a higher level. There's guys that just want to compete. And then you have the guys that are maybe they played at a high level in the past and this is just keeping them active or whatever the case may be. For those guys that are still considering those opportunities for the next level, I mean, it's a constant grind. You have to be ready. And I think for me and the group of guys that I have, some of them have hired agents, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a positive because again, you're associating yourself with someone that hopefully has connections that can put you in the right place and give you the chance to play at the next level. But I think at the same time, you have to be very careful with who you associate yourself with, because there are so many agents out there. There's agencies, and you can kind of get lost in the abyss of the player pool that individual could be working with. So it's staying on top of those individuals or making sure that you're asking the right questions, because if someone is speaking for you, you obviously want to make sure that they're speaking for you in a certain manner. And again, if they're putting their name on the line for you when you get that opportunity, are you going to take advantage of it to a sense of the people that you are playing for or trying to play for now are building a bit of credibility with, say, myself, because I put my name on the line saying that you're the player that you are, and did you show up and show that? So it's always nice to have players that are capable of, again, showing up and doing that, because they're making it easier for the next guy that comes behind them that I'm calling somebody about or trying to get the next opportunity. So I think
Yeah.
that's something I enjoy doing. And I think at this point in my overall like managerial situation, obviously I want to continue to grow the team in a business sense, but I think getting players to the next level just helps bring that additional level of exposure, and it's best for them. So
Yeah, 100%. I have two kind of maybe ending-ish questions.
okay.
One is what you just talked about, which is if you tell a team, "Hey, I got this player," and they don't play well or they do play well, obviously that can hurt or help you with the next one. So talk about kind of using your let's say discretion to say, okay, I've got this player, maybe he's best at this level, so we're not going to try for a D1 school, or maybe we'll try for a D3 school, and walking through that with the player themselves and being like, this is what I've seen from you, this is where I think you'd be best fit, and having those conversations, because some players sometimes think that they are a D1 player if they're not, and that sort of thing. And so that I can imagine that that could cause some difficulties occasionally. And then second, for the high school player that you mentioned, who's got loads of people responding, how is a good way to say, like, yeah, I reached out, but now actually I've got like a gazillion other people and we're probably not gonna come here. And to that point, have you been creating sort of a, maybe agent's not the right word, but with colleges where if you reach out to a college, they know that you're associated with a good team and they're likely to get a quality player from you, which kind of ties into the first question, but they're all kind of tied together. So I guess
Yeah.
touch on like all those things. Because I think it's important that the players know, like, hey, if this guy's gonna help me, he's putting his name on the line for me. I better not screw this up,
Yeah.
which is like I don't think a lot of players realize that. I had that in my own situation. I was in an invite only trial with the USL Championship team myself a couple of years ago, and somebody asked afterwards if I wanted to go on a different team to play in a position that wasn't necessarily my best, and I was like, oh, okay, I've got my job here. Like I wasn't probably going to go because of my own life situation, but I was like, dude, that's not my position. I don't want to make you look silly anyways. Granted, if I was a bit younger in a different stage of life, maybe I would have gone and whatever. But the case was like I had that in my head. I was like, I'm not gonna screw this up for you, for me, when I don't even really want to go anyways. But I feel like a lot of players don't realize that part of it, and the credibility that you have as a what player liaison or whatever the term you want to use can really make or break somebody who's on the bubble, to get into, like, maybe they're a borderline college player, but you tell some D3 program, hey, this guy's a good player. That could be the difference at some point once you've built up a certain level of credibility. So I don't know, just touch on all those on all those things,
Yeah.
because I think it's important.
Okay. And I mean, to start, you had mentioned, having that potentially tough conversation with a player to give them a better understanding of maybe where I see them in a group or where I see.
Or your discretion, where they would
Yeah.
where that player would be successful, that
Yeah.
would tie into like your credibility as well.
So, I mean, speaking about the high school player that I told you about, by no means am I trying to make it sound like I'm the only reason he got these
Of
opportunities.
course, of
This
course.
this player has, ridiculous accolades, and I think when it comes to uh, looking for those next opportunities with so many people that are trying to do the same thing, those accolades are what separate you from other players. And he was just recently named like the player of the year for the county that he's in, and first team all state selection among ridiculous stats that he had. And I think for him the conversation was he didn't really know what level he could play at because he didn't really have anyone helping him through this recruiting process. And it was very, very easy for me to say initially, there's really only one place for you to be, and that's in a high level Division 1 program. And I think initially that was a bit of a shock to him. And I also want to say that the level at which you play does not ultimately decide where you end up. But everybody knows the landscape of soccer here in America, and that if you are typically in a Division 1 program, the chances for an opportunity past that would be a little bit higher, because there's an understanding of what the level is there. But to have a conversation with, say, maybe another player that is looking for Division 1 opportunities, and maybe they're not necessarily at the level that would be required to take advantage of those opportunities, the conversation, I think, just has to be positive. And I'm always extremely transparent with all of the players. I think giving them an overview of what the landscape is. If you are, let's just say, a JUCO player or whatever, you're not in college and you're trying to go D1, there's three things I always initially bring up. Well, all those guys that were in school during COVID, most of them took advantage of an extra year, which threw a lot of things off. The transfer portal is very different than it's ever been, and you still have all of the high school kids that are looking to get recruited and international players that are coming in. So if you aren't necessarily an individual that has the accolades or was playing in a very high level team or has those connections, by no means am I saying I wouldn't try for you, but I think it's just a matter of being realistic and understanding there's players that are at Division 1 programs trying to transfer to other Division 1 programs, and they're not even capable of making that work. So what you're seeing is maybe a lower level player in a Division 1 program is taking a step, I don't want to say down, but to a different level, to maybe a Division 2 or one of the best Division 3 teams in the country, because again, the level doesn't necessarily matter, but if you're in a team that's having extreme success making NCAA tournament appearances, you're going to put yourself in a better place. So having that conversation of just knowing, like, look, you could maybe make a Division 1 program or whatever the case may be, and do you get a real opportunity to show who you are, or do you go there, you're a fringe player, a practice player, and you get to say you played at a Division 1 program, versus maybe going to a top Division 2 program or a top Division 3 program, playing in a successful team, getting minutes and getting some accolades for yourself, which is going to overall continue to boost your personal like brand, and show that you have, again, some credibility, and they know where you're coming from, versus just, oh, this guy played in a Division 1 program, and again, we don't really know too much about him. So that's typically the conversation that I have with players. Is I don't like for them to look so much at, oh, D1's absolutely a must. If you're sending these emails and you're not getting responses, you could try the ID camps. You can try those things, but I think that's when it just, you have to be realistic, and start to maybe think about things a little bit differently, and consider those other opportunities, because I know some of the most successful players I know at this point in time are coming from NAIA teams, coming from Division 2 programs, even JUCO players that are maybe in between situations. So it's um, it's really up to the player to, I think, communicate with me what they're looking for. Hopefully, give me an opportunity to, be transparent with them, and based off of the experience that I've already had, know that I have somewhat of an idea of what I'm talking about, versus just telling them, like, being negative and saying, no, it's not going to work out for you. So I think that covers the piece there. But what was the second question that you had? Was more, I know it was
Oh, it
in,
was like saying no. Like when if you've reached out to X number of schools, and then you've kind of narrowed it down to, let's say you reached out to 10, or well, you reached out to 20, you got 10 schools showing interest, but you've narrowed it down to like three, saying no to those other ones that you reached out to in the beginning,
yeah.
for whether it's a prospect like the one that you're talking about, or because that's a little bit different. I feel like a school would be like, oh damn, we missed that one, but that's all right
Yeah.
because he's really good. But then another one where it's like you were doing all this stuff to reach out to us, and now you're like going away. But at the same time, a player can only go to one school. So like how do you walk through that with your own kind of role as the player liaison, or whatever you want to call it? How do you walk through that with the player, and do you have methods or so that seem to work better than others in that situation?
I think it's so important that we're talking about this, because you said it yourself. It really does, change based off of the player. The player that I've spoken about does have a lot of opportunities, versus the opposite end of the spectrum, where you just said, maybe they put in all this work to get noticed. A school reached out, gave them an opportunity, and they decided to move in a different direction. I think the number one thing that I would say is of the utmost importance is you not burning any bridges. And I think when you are the player that has all the opportunities and there's a lot of interest in you, when you do decide to pick a program, obviously you want to make sure that you cross off as many boxes as you can, as far as it being the best overall situation for you, academically, athletically, the life that you're going to live in that program, because hopefully you are going to be there for the next couple years, and enjoy that, versus maybe the individual who goes and just decides based off a name, doesn't have a great experience, and then is right back to square one trying to figure out what's next. With that player though that does have the opportunities, I think it's as simple as, once you make that decision, first you should be consistent in your communication throughout the entire process. There's nothing wrong with giving coaches an update of where you're at. If they want to give you a timeline and say we need to have an answer by this date, well, you can decide to respect that, or respectfully say, look, I'm considering these options. And again, you don't have to say what they are, but I'm considering numerous options. I really want to make sure that I've done my due diligence in my research, and I can have an answer for you by this date. And the worst thing that can happen is, okay, we're going to have to move in the next direction with someone else, or, you know what, we really do want you here. We'll give you some extra time. That's just, again, being professional and communicating. But if you email a coach, they email you back, and then 3 weeks go by, 2 weeks go by, a month goes by, however long goes by, and they don't hear from you, well, yeah, they've already moved in a different direction. They don't have time to wait. And they, when they find someone they like, the fact that they're responding in the first place is massive. And then, when they do, again, it's just being transparent with them and letting them know where you're at in the process. And I think that's huge for that individual that has, a lot of opportunities. For the individual that maybe is doing a lot of the dirty work and in getting their opportunities and grinding it out and sending all these emails, I've seen it before where that happens. They respond, and then again the communication isn't there, and then I've even seen where things fall through and that same player is trying to go back and say, well, I'm still interested, and the likelihood that they're going to be in a place where they even respond is so slim. So again, just being transparent and letting them know, like, if you reach out, if you reach out, they reach out. First of all, you're going to school, so if they don't have your major, or you don't see yourself fitting into the team that they have, well, don't waste your time, don't waste their time. But if they are reaching back out, and for the most part they have the things that you're looking for, well, I think it's extremely important for the players to ask more questions. I feel like a lot of players don't ask questions. And personally, if I could go back and do it again, I would have handled it in such a different way, because you should be able to ask where that coach sees you fitting into the program and feel comfortable about asking that. You should be able to ask, is there an opportunity for me to receive financial help academically and athletically, or ask about the way that the team likes to play, because you've just said it, here recently, like, you were offered an opportunity, it wasn't necessarily the best for you, or you didn't feel it was the best for you at that time in your life, and you didn't take advantage of it. Well, if they're recruiting you, unfortunately, you decide to go to a school, you could show up the first day and they could say, we're going to have you play right back, and you're center mid, and you're in a place where they're like, what is going on? So just again, ask for transparency, because you don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste theirs. Any player that shows up and is in that situation I just said is instantly going to be looking to leave and figure out what's next, or you're not going to get the best out of them. If you ask all those questions and make sure that you're both on the same page, at that point, you show up, the coach either sticks to what they said and you continue to build trust, or they don't stick to what they said and you realize that, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be here and I should look for another opportunity. So I think that's probably the most important piece there, is just asking those questions and making sure that you feel comfortable in your decision, versus feeling like your back's against the wall and maybe this is one of the only opportunities that you have, so you have to jump at the opportunity to take it. The last thing you want to do is spend money and be somewhere you don't want to go and have to deal with that whole transfer process. So
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a good way to wrap it up. We've been chatting for a little while. No, you're like, oh, I don't know if we'll get to an hour. We're past an hour. It flew by.
not good
Um,
conversation for sure.
you got any last nickels, any last quick words of wisdom before we get you out of here?
Um, no, I would just say for all of the players out there that are exploring whatever opportunities they're exploring, it's just extremely important that you're consistent. And if you are going to commit to it, fully commit. Don't half commit. There are so many guys working for the same thing, and you owe it to yourself to fully commit. And whether it works out or it doesn't, know that you gave it everything you had, versus going half in and then looking back someday and saying to yourself, wow, I wish I would have taken it more seriously, or um, put more into it, because nobody wants to be there. So definitely, my words of wisdom there for anybody, because once it's over, or you have that bad injury, or you just have to move in a different direction with life, it's definitely, you'll miss it. You'll miss it for sure, and you definitely want to enjoy it while you have it. So that's how I'd wrap that up. And I really appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity to speak. Been paying attention to the things that you're doing for a long time, and obviously you're super plugged into the soccer scene here in the area. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. I think those are, for everybody listening, those great words of advice and definitely take heed of those, because every little thing that you can do to give yourself a half step up in your process is very important. And great conversation. Love the words of advice. And for those listening, we'll see you guys next time.